Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. Just a recent finds video. Some stuff I've brought in the past, well, since the last recent finds video, I guess. It's kind of been a few weeks or whatever. Um, yeah, still just kind of doing my regular thing. Still doing some purging and been selling a bunch of stuff on eBay this past month or so. Actually, probably the most I've sold in quite some time, which has been kind of good. And so just kind of picked up a few kind of replacement copies and a couple other neat things that come into the collection. Just wanted to kind of share that. And also, I usually don't show a ton of CDs that I pick up and find, but I kind of have a really cool CD score story because it kind of wasn't planned and just stumbled across it and picked up some great stuff at a great price and all of that. So I'll share that as well. But yeah, let's just kind of dive right in. I'll start off by showing, well, I guess one of the things I've been sharing with you guys over the past, I don't know, few months or whatnot. I've been getting in kind of the Japanese pressings, looking to pull more of those into my collection. So, had a couple nice things that came in over the past few weeks. One being ZZ Top's Eliminator. I know you guys are very familiar with this album. Sharp dress man, legs, give me all your lovin', all that great stuff. Just kind of a classic ZZ Top piece. So those are good find. Next here, we have Van Halen 5150. Arguably my favorite Van Halen album. I know some people, they're cool with that. Other people, it's kind of sin to say anything like that about the Van Hagar era. But not with me. Like I said, I love this album to death, and quite frankly, I'm one of those people that truly, truly love and don't know if I could live without Van Hagar or without Van Halen with Roth. I mean, I just think both of those eras just produced some of the most amazing music. Matter of fact, I'll never forget having that thought when I saw them live, like, when was it, 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that was, they did the tour with when Roth came back. And I'm sitting there listening to it, and it's just, hit after hit after hit. And then after I left and I was kind of walking home, I remember actually thinking, that show was filled with hits from front to back, and yet they didn't play one single song from the Hagar era, which, as you know, tons of hits over that. So I mean, that their entire catalog, I mean, there's a lot of good music wrapped around Van Halen just as a band over their entire time frame. So yeah, I'm definitely one that I love both eras, and I think if you actually skip out on either one, you're really missing a lot. But at the same time, it is easy for me to say too, I can understand how hardcore early Van Halen fans would not like Hagar, especially, you know, those that don't like the synth and all that kind of stuff. But then again, you're probably getting pissed off at 84 anyway. But that's a whole other video to talk about that stuff. We're just going to the next find, which was Neil Young's Trans. So I do have a really nice copy of this, but it was nice to find a Japanese pressing, so I had to pick that up. And this is always kind of a special album to me. Not necessarily Neil Young's one of his more popular albums, but this is one. This was the first Neil Young thing that I ever heard years and years and years and years before I would even know who Neil Young was. And I know I've told this story before, but just got the brief, quick 10-second version. I'm third or fourth grade, somewhere in that time frame. I know nothing about rock music or anything whatsoever. We have a TV where we have like maybe 5 channels. There's no cable or anything. Turn it on one night, and there just happens to be this guy on stage wearing these glasses with his guitar and the little mic thing kind of coming down, and I heard him and Neil Lofgren's, I believe, who was the other guitarist performing, do the song "Sample and Hold." I think it was that Live in Berlin concert. And I just remember as a kid, I mean, being especially that young, that just blew my mind. I was like, what in the heck did I just experience? And for many, many years, just had no idea who it was, never heard the song again, couldn't quote a lyric or anything. I just remember the feel and the basic tempo of the song. And gosh, 20, 30 years later, I stumbled across it and realized, oh crap, it was Neil Young. It was the song Sample and Hold. So, yeah, this album always has a very, very special place in my, in that implanting of preparing me for rock later in life. um, Another great soundtrack here, Bustin' Loose by Roberta Flack. And I don't know if you guys, I'm sure a lot of you remember that movie with Richard Pryor and Cicely Tyson from early 80s, I believe. Fantastic movie, hilarious, great soundtrack. And my two favorite songs on here would definitely be Just When I Needed You by Roberta Flack and Children's Song. Kind of two of the main theme songs in the movie. Excuse me. So another great addition. And yes, I do love to get my disco on, so I was happy to get a copy of Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. I do love some disco. I don't care what anybody says. I love disco, love the disco era. Would love to have been a part of it if I would have been a bit older back then. But Saturday Night Fever is just kind of a classic soundtrack. Next soundtrack I really want to get my hands on too is Urban Cowboy. I've been having a hard time finding a nice mint copy of that. A lot of copies out there, but just not like a really, really nice mint copy. So if any of you in the VC have one and interested in doing a trade or something, please let me know. And this was one that I was really happy to find. It's not a grail, but my level of search for it has been kind of grailish. Okay, but the album itself is a Rat, that first self-titled, which I think it's considered an EP, I think, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, this is an album that I've been searching for at least a good 2.5 years or so. I had a copy of it in the past, and it was kind of rough, had some wear and that type of thing, so I purged it, and just been trying to get a perfect copy ever since. So never stumbled across one in the wild. I actually tried to buy one off of eBay one time, and it had this picture on there. It said, new sealed, blah, blah, blah. And then when it came, they sent the wrong Rat album, so I had to send that back, so it's just been avoiding me. 3 months ago, I was at a record show. A guy had one for only $12, and I pulled it out, and it looked pretty good. And I noticed there was like a big crease across the upper corner there. And I was just like, can't do it. So this past record show I went to, which finally there was a good show for the first time in quite some time. It was so funny because not only did I find this one, but there was another guy selling there that had a perfect copy of just a regular pressing with a Japanese pressing. And I was like, wow, after all of this searching and in one show with dealers just a couple tables apart, I find 2 mint copies. So I decided to go with the Japanese pressing. But it was really cool because, I bumped into my boy Billy Hurst. All you guys know him here in the VC. He ended up stopping by the show for a few minutes, and we, just kind of, dug for a while, then went and had lunch, just hung out for a bit. And I told him about that other copy that was over there, because, he knows, too, it's not the easiest one to find in the wild or whatever. So he was able to get that copy for a really good price, too. So it was kind of cool that, the 2 nice copies that finally showed their face, 2 VC members walked out with them. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, that was a awesome find. I was so pumped about that one. Then you got my girl Pat Benatar, Live from Earth. This is kind of a live album with all of her great stuff on here. Love is a Battlefield, We Live for Love, Hell's for Children. Just kind of a little bit of everything. Definitely one of my goddesses there. Just rock and roll women. Love Pat Benatar. Pat Benatar and Joan Jett. Of course, you can throw Lita Ford in there and a few others, but yeah, definitely Pat. She's at the top of my list. So that was a great find. Little Joe Perry here. Now, this is an album that I wasn't really that familiar with from front to back. But it was kind of, I've heard a couple of songs off of it. Because I hadn't really heard much about the Joe Perry project, period. It's just part of, just never really listened to it that much. But there was one or two songs off of here that I had heard and knew that it was, pretty good. And I just kind of found this at a small store for just a, few dollars. So I went ahead and picked it up, and another nice addition. And of course, everybody knows this awesome band from the 80s, Culture Club, Color by Numbers. Another great addition. It's a Miracle, Miss Me Blind, Karma Chameleon, on and on and on. Just, a lot of some of their big hits off of this album. And I know it's one of those more mainstream hits that everyone knows and gets played out and everything else, but still, Karma Chameleon is still my favorite song by Culture Club. I love it. I love what I just love what Boy George does with his vocals in that. That there's a really cool sass to it in just kind of a basic new wave kind of way. That I just dig it. I think it's some of his best vocal work. But yeah, Culture Club. And so Michael Gerard here, which is Equinox. Kind of a strange album. It's really even kind of hard to describe. Just, we got some new computers and new instruments, and they make strange noises. So I'm just going to do it for quite some time, make an album. It's almost like the best way to describe it. Very strange, but it's cool stuff. I love kind of putting this on as background music. Sometimes it's just kind of something really different. But again, another good pickup there. So that's kind of it for Japanese pressings. A few other pickups here. One thing I'm working on right now is kind of completing my Rod Stewart artist collection. So I'm kind of building that up. I may make a box set moving forward, but for right now, just kind of looking at completing the collection. So one nice pickup in that regard was a nice little $2 fine for a great copy of Body Wishes by Mr. Stewart. And one of the things I really like about this album, and it's definitely not, there's no, big major hits on this album or anything like that. But the one thing that's really cool, I think this album came out 83-ish, somewhere right in there. And this is really the album where I feel you really hear Rod starting to become 80s Rod. Like, you kind of hear some of his 70s flavor in this, but you definitely hear what was going to be coming going into the 80s Rod era, which I love. I mean, that's my favorite. I mean, I love his 70s stuff too, without question. That's classic, awesome stuff. But if you gave me a choice today to never listen to 70s Rod again or never listen to 80s Rod again, oh, there's no question. You can get rid of all the 70s stuff because 80s Rod just blows me away. I love it. So this album is very much kind of a transition album in my mind with just the way he sounds and what he does on here. So really cool album, and great addition to the Rod Stewart collection. And I think he's got so many albums, I don't want to say anything out of place, but I believe this was the next album after Body Wishes, I think, which was Rod Stewart's Camouflage. And this was really the first album that I really kind of knew Rod, the first song I ever really heard by him was Do You Think I'm Sexy? Which, again, is one of those cool kind of, rock, if you will, kind of marking stories. There was a time period where my mom and all my brothers and sisters, there's 5 of us, were staying with my grandmother and my grandfather. And, this is a 2-bedroom little house. So my brother and I slept in one room on a bed, and my mom, sister, and grandmother slept in another room, and my younger twin brother slept on the floor. I mean, we were just, we were just making it happen at that point in time. Well, at night, my little brothers would sleep on the floor. They would let us watch TV for a while, and from laying in the bed, I was in the room, I could see right outside the door and see the TV. And you're so close, it's almost like you're in the living room anyway. So I'll never forget, we're laying there one night, and the video for Do You Think I'm Sexy comes on, and I just remember, just like, being just so blown away by that video. Between Rod, his cool spiked hair and everything, but that whole synth bit inside of there. Again, I didn't know who Rod was. I didn't know what was going to come in the 80s and MTV and blah, blah, blah. But that got seared into my mind. But another album, another video. But this was really the first album where I started following Rod. You know, some guys have All the Luck, Infatuation, you know, all that stuff was in high video rotation during that time frame. And yeah, this is when that Rod era started that I just loved. Oh, so it's definitely great to find a nice, clean replacement copy there. Another good one, Cab Calloway, the Heidi Ho Man. Uh, this was extremely exciting to find at this show. I was so happy because the last 3 or 4 shows I've been to at this place, they usually have about 5 or 6 shows a year. And the last 3 or 4 throughout this entire year have just been kind of crap. I mean, not crap, but it's just, I came away with nothing. Maybe a CD here or there. But this show, I mean, there was a couple of dealers that had some awesome stuff. And it was like, finally, a lot of those Japanese pressings came from that show. And with just doing a lot of sales in my eBay, it was like perfect timing too. So, yeah, so this was another one that popped up there that it just had me so pumped. Again, Cab Calloway. I mean, I don't know. I had a copy of this album that was pretty rough, and I just kind of thought, you're never going to find like a, you know, near mint copy of that out there, and so you better keep it. So to stumble across one, and Cab is my boy. I mean, he's one of those guys that's not only just the music, but it's just the level of respect that goes with what he did. Not only his style of music, just what he did as an entertainer, the time period he was doing this in. I mean, it was nothing like today, obviously. And so there's just something so much deeper that goes when I'm giving an artist that, you know, respecting on this level for what they did far beyond just their music. And Cab is definitely one of them. So that was a tremendous find. I was very, very pumped about that one. As well as this one, Pavarotti's Greatest Hits. I've always had an easy time finding great Pavarotti stuff on CDs. I have a ton of his CDs. But my favorite song, Nessa Dorma by him, I've never been able to find a good copy of that on vinyl. One that didn't play with a bunch of pops and crackles and blah, blah, blah. So to stumble across this Greatest Hits was awesome. Some nice London pressing, plays fantastic, and just good Pavarotti there. And yeah, and the guy is just kind of amazing. I heard he was a kind of a jerk in real life, but the power of his voice is just, man, I just can't really put it into words. And not power just isn't like, you know, how hard he sings a song, but I mean like literally the power, the amount of air that he can move with his voice is it's just amazing. But yeah, that's Pavi. And last but not least, I think I mentioned this in my last video, whenever I find any really nice copies of an orchestra performing this, I always pick it up, which again is Carl Orff's Carmina Burana. And this is the Chicago Symphony and Chorus with James Levine. And just another great performance. I think it's really hard to even screw this one up. I don't think I've really ever heard a bad performance of this by any orchestra or choir. And it's just my favorite piece, and I never get tired of finding different versions of that. So that's what I had as far as vinyl goes. Let me run through these CDs really quick so this video is not too long. And the quick story behind the CDs, I had a meeting with a client the other day. We decided to meet at the library because it was kind of a convenient place and, you know, go get a nice quiet room, blah, blah, blah. And I go into the library and I'm in the lobby and I get stood up. So I'm waiting there for like 25, 30 minutes. And it's like, okay. But as I'm sitting there, I wasn't really paying attention. You know, people are walking around and browsing at books and stuff like that. But they're doing it on these carts that are sitting out there. And it just never really registered. Okay, that's kind of weird that they're not on the shelves and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was a book sale. And I saw on one of the carts, finally, it said, oh, all books are $1. And then it also said all CDs are $1. And I was like, oh, okay. And I looked around, I was like, there's 2 little boxes, you know, maybe this big by that big, 2 boxes of CDs there. And the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, it's probably just a bunch of junk, CDs that are just used and abused to no end. They've been library rentals and that, or checkouts and that type of thing. I'm like, screw it, I'm getting stood up. I might as well go look. And pulled out one CD, and I was like, oh, that's a good one. And opened it up, and it was perfect condition. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice. Then I started going through those two boxes, and I pulled out like 23 or so CDs, all in just perfect condition. So this was an awesome haul when you think about not expecting to find these CDs in a dollar cart at a, at a local library, all in perfect condition. But let me kind of show you what I picked up. Slayer, Christ Illusion, and this is the 2-disc set with the DVD, the Digipack, and it has that, I forgot what you call that effect. But I mean, God, Christ Illusion for $1. That was freaking awesome. So that was a great pickup. Then you got, I'm sorry about the glare there, Wrath by Lamb of God. Another fantastic pickup. I won't show the back because you can't really see anyway with the glare. And then Lamb of God, Ashes of the Wake. This is one of their albums I hadn't really heard before, and I actually listened to this on the way home that day, and probably have a new favorite Lamb of God CD because this was really, really good. And then you have more Lamb of God here, As the Palaces Burn. I mean, some great $1 pickups. And then I kept flipping through and it's like, oh, there's some Mastodon. Blood Mountain. It's another great find. And then some more Mastodon, Crack the Sky. And this is the 2 CD set with the DVD as well. And again, everything perfect condition. Baroness here, the Blue Album. Another fantastic find. Cat Power, Moon Picks. And then, probably pronouncing this wrong, because I can't really see it that clearly, but I believe is it Meshuggah or something like that? I've actually seen some albums by this band, but never actually took the time to sit down and listen to them and that type of thing. So this is my first experience by them. And so again, another great pickup, if nothing else, just to be introduced to them finally. Here you have the Sword, Warp Raiders. The Donnas Turn 21. My boy Terrence. I don't know if you remember him or not, but I think back in the, this is like late 80s, something like 87, 88, somewhere around there. He had that hit single Wishing Well, which is kind of a really cool song from that time period. Isis, another good pickup. And this is, The Essence of Truth, blah, blah, blah. Another great one. Camelot. This is that style of metal. I don't really know the name of it, but I've had the vinyl actually for quite some time, so it's kind of cool to find the CD. But if you haven't heard them before, the best way I could describe them is if David Bowie decided to make a metal type of record, this is somewhat what it would sound like, because the guy's vocal, his type of delivery is somewhat Bowie-ish, if that helps on any level. But yeah, so that was cool to find. And this is actually the very first one that I pulled out when I started digging. The Pussycat Dolls. Say what you will, but the song Stick With You, what can I say? I love it. I've always liked it. And that's just, one of those things gets under my skin too, because that song kind of represents most things that I hate about modern day music. Just like Taylor Swift's Blank Space. Everything about Blank Space represents what I cannot stand in modern day music. but I love both those songs. So, you know me, I have no shame in my game. If I like it, I listen to it. I don't care. So, I'm glad to have some Pussycat Dolls in my collection. Followed right by Wu-Tang. This is Forever. Another great 2 CD set. Planet P blah blah. Planet P Project. Another really good album here. One I've been wanting to get on CD for quite some time. Favorite song off of this is Why Me? And I don't know if I spoke about this in a video in the past or not, but something about that song gives me the creeps. It makes my stomach turn. It's just some songs that do that, and I can't even really explain why. But Why Me is one that just it freaks me out. Much like Avalon by Roxy Music, or the cover of Avalon, just weird things. But that's kind of the cool thing about music, is just how it can just move you in ways sometimes you don't even understand. So those were the ones out of the stuff I purchased that I'm keeping. Now, as I mentioned before, I bought about 22 or 23 CDs, and some that were in that bunch. There were 2 Metallica CDs. There was this Master of Puppets, which was an early Elektra edition. Then there was also And Justice for All early Elektra edition. And there was also a Slayer, a Haunted Chapel. And I decided to list the And Justice for All and the Slayer on eBay. And I already sold both of those for right at $28 for the 2 of those. So the way I figured it, I got all the CDs, sold 2 of them for $28. I already made all my money back, and you know, I'm $5 ahead. So it was a good haul in that regard. So if anyone is interested, though, you know, I do have this Metallica. Again, early Elektra copy there. And then on eBay, I do also have, in this collection, there was a bunch of Opeth albums that came in there as well. So kind of a nice instant Opeth collection. You know, I like their stuff. I'm not a huge fan. It's not something that I would listen to over and over. So I decided just to go ahead and sell these. And for those of you that really know the band, you probably already know the titles here. So I mean, that was a good CD haul. You wouldn't think to pull out that much good metal and stuff in a local library sell-off, especially with every disc being perfect. So great stuff. But yeah, so this video's running quite long. So as always, VC, thanks for taking the time to watch. I appreciate it. I mean, there's a million other videos you could be watching right now, and instead you're wasting time on my channel. So I definitely appreciate it. And as always, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any requests. All right, talk to you soon, guys.